17 years and they fired me over stale croissants and a slideshow. Name's Mark, 53 systems analyst. The chipped mug in my coat pocket still held heat, unlike their apology. Ever wonder what happens when the quiet guy leaves? But takes the blueprint with him. Tell me, what would you have done? 17 years in that building, and all I got was a 15-minute meeting with HR and a lukewarm apology. That morning the sky had the color of dishwater, flat gray and tired. The kind of morning where even the birds seemed too disheartened to sing. I arrived at Meridian Technologies at exactly 8:03 a.m., same as always. My keycard beeped green. The lobby still smelled faintly of burnt coffee and lemon-scented cleaner. No one looked up when I passed, but I didn't expect them to. That's not how it worked here. At 8:42, I got the calendar invite. Meeting, 9:00 a.m., Eli Dawson, Vanessa T. No subject line. No warning. I stared at it a second longer than I needed to. Laura had warned me months ago, half laughing, half tired, don't give them more loyalty than they give back. I'd smiled at the time. I thought she was being dramatic. Eli Dawson's office was a corner glass cage, sleek, modern all form, and no warmth. Vanessa from HR sat next to him, already smiling like she'd practiced it. "Mark, thanks for coming in," Eli said. His tone was syrupy. I sat without being asked. "We'll get right to it," Vanessa chimed in, flipping open a beige folder. "Due to restructuring across our analytics division, your position is being eliminated effective immediately." My fingers curled slightly on the armrest. Eli folded his hands. "This is not a reflection on your performance." I didn't speak, didn't blink, just nodded. Quiet compliance is what they expect. It makes the exit cleaner. Vanessa pushed a small envelope toward me. "This includes your severance details, COBRA information, and outplacement services." I signed where she pointed. I didn't ask questions. I didn't even reach for the bottled water she offered. I stood, thanked them both with a voice steadier than I felt, and walked out. Outside Eli's office, the hallway felt longer than usual. I passed the marketing pods, then the break room where someone had once scribbled "Bring your own joy" on the whiteboard in blue marker. It was still there, half erased. Back at my desk, I began packing. First, the photo of Laura and me from a trip to Bar Harbor, her wind-blown hair my ridiculous tourist hat. Then the cactus Miguel had given me my last birthday, still alive against all odds. A USB stick labeled "Mark Confidential." And finally, the mug. It was an ugly thing, ceramic forest green, a chip along the rim from the time it slipped from my hand during the Q3 sprint of 2018. I never replaced it. Miguel approached his sneakers, squeaking against the tile. "They told you, didn't they? I didn't look up." "Yeah, that's messed up, man." No, heads up. Nothing. I closed the box gently. "It's just business. That's not business. That's betrayal." I offered him a small smile. "Take care of the cactus, will you?" He blinked. "You're not even mad." I shrugged, slipping my coat on. "I'll be fine." As I walked out, eyes slid toward me, then away. "That's the corporate code. Don't look too long at someone being erased. Might be contagious." I took the stairs instead of the elevator. 4 flights down. The stairwell echoed with the sound of my soles, each step a punctuation mark in a sentence I hadn't written. Outside, the rain had started. Cold, thin, sharp. I didn't open my umbrella. I walked straight across the lot to my car, a rust-red Honda Accord that still had receipts from last month's oil change crumpled in the cup holder. As I reached the driver's side door, someone called out. "Mark." I turned. Eli. He didn't come closer. Just stood there under the building's awning, hands in the pockets of his tailored coat. "Thank you for your service," he said. It sounded like a line from a war movie. Hollow. I said nothing, just nodded once and opened the door. Inside the car, the warmth hadn't kicked in yet. I held the mug in my coat pocket. My thumb traced the chipped edge. They think I walked out defeated, I thought, watching the rain streak down the windshield. They forgot who built their foundations. I didn't need their systems. I'd made my own long before they stopped trusting me. The snow had started just before dawn. It came soft without ceremony, dusting the streets and hedges like powdered sugar. From my second-story window, the world looked paused Columbus in grayscale, the kind of quiet that makes you whisper even when you're alone. My home office still smelled faintly of coffee and old paper. The walls were lined with shelves I built myself back in 2010, when I thought I'd spend my entire career with Meridian. They sagged a little under the weight of tech manuals and framed certificates, the latter more for Laura's comfort than mine. A Miles Davis record turned slowly on the Crossley by the window, soft notes echoing like memories. I plugged in the external drive I'd retrieved from the filing cabinet in the garage. It was old, bulkier than the new ones they issued, but reliable. I'd set it up in 2011 after a company-wide outage nearly wiped our QA logs. I remember telling Colin Bright the then consultant paranoia is a feature. He didn't laugh, but he approved the purchase anyway. The drive whirred to life with a low click, then a quiet hum. Familiar directories flickered on screen, vendor logs, compliance reports, code backups, 2021, fine notes. Laura was folding laundry on the bed behind me. She didn't speak, didn't ask, just moved with the steady rhythm of someone who knew her presence was enough. Every so often I caught the scent of fresh cotton from the clean shirts stacked beside her. I opened a spreadsheet titled Invoice Archive 2020-2023. It had thousands of rows, vendor names, PO numbers, payment dates. That's when I saw it. Apex Cloud Solutions. Not a name I recognized. Small payments at first, $740, $1, $250, buried between regular expenses. But by late 2022, the figures ballooned $12,000, $26,800, $54,300. I frowned. Apex wasn't on our approved vendor list. I'd helped write that list. I toggled over to archived emails. The search bar blinked while I typed Apex Cloud Solutions override request, Trent Hargrove, a hit. November 18th, 2022. An access override request, signed by Trent himself. The email was curt, unusually vague. Temporary vendor override requested for urgent compliance remediation. Do not delay, TH. I remembered flagging that line once in passing, but by then my role had been narrowed. Keep your head down, Eli had said. Let leadership handle the business side. I ran a quick search through Ohio's business registration portal. Took less than 5 minutes. Apex Cloud Solutions, LLC. Registered to a Clint Hargrove, Trent's brother-in-law. Same home address used on 2 holiday cards I'd received back when the office still did Secret Santa. I leaned back in the chair, heart thudding quietly, not panic, more like a slow, measured drumbeat. Outside, a plow scraped along the road, slow and rhythmic. Behind me, Laura set a towel down and finally spoke. You're not done with them, are you? I didn't turn around. They're not done with me. She walked over, handed me my chipped green mug, now steaming with fresh coffee. I wrapped my hands around it, the crack near the rim catching my thumb, just like always. My mind spun back to a folder I hadn't opened in years, legacy backdoors. I'd written most of that code during a redesign in 2016, back when the platform was more duct tape than architecture. I'd argued for building in a failsafe for QA tracing a system bypass for root-level diagnostics. Leadership hadn't cared then. It was developer paranoia. But I'd built it anyway. Quietly. Efficiently. And it was still there. I ran the script. Command line, simple keys. Access granted. A full system mirror popped up. Everything contract folders, staff emails, internal memos. Not just mine, everyone's. My old credentials still held authority. They'd changed the locks, but forgotten the back door. I sipped the coffee. Laura had added cinnamon again. Said it reminded her of Christmas. I let the warmth settle into me, then opened another tab, this one with a fresh notepad file. They wanted to bury 17 years of quiet loyalty under a generic HR statement. Fine. But I still had receipts. Literal ones. Old audit logs. Payment trails. A vendor they weren't supposed to use. A CFO who forgot that paper digital or otherwise never truly disappears. The mug clicked softly against the desk when I set it down. I looked at the screen rows of data glowing back at me like a secret only I knew. They shut the door on me. But I still have the keys. Most people think the threat is in hacking from the outside. It's never that. It's the quiet ones inside who remember everything. The cafe was tucked between a florist and an insurance office, the kind of place locals didn't advertise, but returned to anyway. I'd sat at the same table for years, back corner, near the bathroom outlet to the right, just enough view of the door to see who came and went. The barista with the silver nose ring gave me a nod, familiar, but not chatty. That's why I liked her. Thursday, November 16th, 2023. 2 days after I walked out of Meridian with a mug in my pocket and 17 years behind me. Jazz hummed through the speakers, some live Miles Davis recording I hadn't heard before. A steam wand hissed. The place smelled like cinnamon and cedar. My laptop booted silently. It wasn't company issued, of course. This one had never touched their network. I didn't need their systems. I'd stopped trusting them long before they stopped pretending to trust me. I opened the file I'd started the night before, Q4 disclosure/package. Zip. First tab transaction logs. Highlighted payments from Apex Cloud Solutions. Filtered by date amount and internal authorization stamps. Trent's name showed up 6 times. Each one paired with an override. Each override tied to a shell invoice payable to a vendor that didn't even have a working website. Second tab business records. Cross-verified with the Secretary of State Registry. Clint Hargrove. Trent's brother-in-law was listed as owner of Apex and 2 other entities, Horizon Metrics and Bright Compliance Group. I searched Bright's name next. Colin Bright, the quiet consultant from years back, had co-signed 2 of the LLC filings. His name was buried deep in registration PDFs, like he thought no one would ever check. I sipped my coffee. Too bitter, but it kept my hands warm. I added a timestamp sheet system access logs showing unauthorized entries into our compliance system during weekends, always between 1 Suzuru and 3 Suzurum AM, long after anyone should have been working. 2 of those dates matched override approvals, signed the following Monday. Sloppy. Arrogant. But I'd seen it before. Not fraud in action, fraud in routine. It wasn't greed that exposed them. It was comfort. Back in 2016, I proposed a silent audit trail module. Low priority, they said. So I built it anyway. It had been running quietly in the background for 7 years. No alerts, no flashy dashboards, just timestamps, IP addresses, user credentials logged to an encrypted mirror only I knew how to access. I'd spent years being ignored. That gave me time to build something no one else would think of. The final document I attached was a short memo. 1 page. Simple language. To the Board of Directors, I believe you have a right to know what your systems are really doing. Attached, you'll find documentation concerning unauthorized vendor approvals data, access anomalies, and potential financial misconduct. My employment may have ended abruptly, but my responsibility to the integrity of this company has not. I recommend an immediate audit by external counsel, preferably Patricia Wren of Keenan & Holt, LLP. She's thorough. Sincerely, Mark Redden, former systems analyst, Meridian Technologies. No accusations, no rage, just a quiet presentation of facts. I clicked back into my inbox. Composed a new email. To Walter Briggs, longtime board member, old school integrity type. CC full board distribution list. Subject Q4. Governance. Immediate attention required attachments. Q4 disclosure package. Zip encrypted. In the body of the message I wrote, "Please review the attached material ahead of this Friday's Q4 board meeting. Encryption key will be delivered separately via secure method at 7:55 a.m. Then I clicked Schedule Send. Delivery Friday, Nov 17, 2023, 8:00 a.m., right as the meeting started. I glanced at my phone. One new message from Miguel. "Heard you're out. Total BS. Anything I can do," I typed back. "Stay out of it. Just watch." That was all. He'd understand. I sat for a moment watching the snow begin again outside. Thick flakes this time, heavy and fast, the kind that blanketed the world in quiet. I shut the laptop slowly. The old hinges creaked just a little. I placed it back in my satchel, zipped it shut. Then I said it out loud to no one in particular. Let's see who's really watching now. And I meant it. 8:00 a.m. sharp. The moment the board started their meeting, I let the system do the talking. I didn't need a stage or spotlight. Just a park bench 2 blocks away from the Meridian building. The air was crisp, the kind that clings to your lungs before it lets go. I zipped my coat up to my neck and wrapped my hands around the chipped ceramic mug I hadn't put down since Monday. Laura had poured coffee into it before she left for work. It was still warm enough. I sat still and listened to the city cars hissing over wet pavement, a dog barking once, then nothing. It was a silence Walter would have appreciated. He once told me back in 15, "You don't have to shout to be heard. Just speak when they're quiet." I remembered that now. Somewhere on the 14th floor, the quarterly board meeting had just begun. Suits, spreadsheets, stale croissants. The kind of corporate ritual that pretends to be decisive, but mostly just reenacts last quarter's disappointments. At exactly 8:03, the first vibration came. My phone lit up with a message from Miguel. Miguel. It hit. Subject line, Apex, urgent financial review. Walter's reading it out loud. I imagined the email unfolding in that room. Transaction logs, vendor records, shell company trails, every signature, every override, every single breadcrumb they thought no one had noticed compressed into a zip file with a clean index and timestamps I'd written myself. Eli would be trying to keep his face neutral the way he practiced in the mirror when he thought no one was watching. Trent would excuse himself first, maybe to make a call, maybe to prepare his alibi. Colin. He'd probably try to act confused. That had always been his first move. Miguel Walters not even blinking. He just asked Eli if Apex was approved by procurement. Eli looked like he swallowed a stapler. I took a slow sip of coffee. A couple passed by walking their dog, nodding politely. I nodded back. At 8:17, my phone rang. Not a text, a call. Walter Briggs, the screen said. I let it buzz once more before answering. Morning. His voice was measured but not cold. Is this all real? Every line, every timestamp. I wrote most of them. A pause. If this holds mark, this isn't just about some side deal. This touches reporting integrity. Sarbanes-Hell, even policy governance. Then maybe it's time for a new policy. Another pause. This one longer. I could hear muffled voices behind him, the boardroom door likely ajar. "Where are you right now?" he asked. "2 blocks away. Bench near the war memorial. You planning on coming in?" "No," I said. "This part isn't mine anymore." The system speaks louder without me. He exhaled. "I'll be in touch." The line went dead. I looked up toward the building. Tinted windows, indistinguishable faces behind them, but I knew the view from inside. I'd designed that floor's security matrix in 2012. I'd walked those hallways for 17 years, learned which lights buzzed, which printers jammed on Wednesdays, which elevators skipped the 13th floor out of superstition. They thought they understood their systems, but they never really did. They never saw the quiet redundancies I'd tucked away like loose change in a winter coat. The system wasn't built for retribution. It was built for continuity. And when people forgot who made it run, it simply remembered by itself. Miguel. They're calling it now, trying to trace sender. I smiled. They could trace all they wanted. It had been sent through a series of redirects from a private cloud node I'd spun up in 2019, back when Colin said cloud audit logs were a waste of time. The only real trail led to a version of me that no longer worked there, and the only people who'd recognize the architecture were the ones who helped ignore it. The mug in my hand had cooled. I finished the last sip, stood up slowly, and dropped the folded napkin Laura had tucked in my coat pocket into the trash. In her handwriting, it simply said, "Take your time. You've earned it." I smiled again. The systems were speaking, and someone finally was listening. The legal team didn't offer me my job back. They offered me silence. That was the first thing Patricia Graves said when I sat down across from her. No pretense of pleasantries, just a manila folder, a glossy pen, and the kind of smile that never touches the eyes. The legal conference room hadn't changed since the last time I was in it, maybe a compliance session back in 2019. Same flickering fluorescent lights, same 3 framed posters about corporate integrity, the kind that made you wonder if they hung them up more for show than for belief. Walter Briggs was already seated on the far side of the table, arms crossed, tie loosened. His eyes tracked me as I walked in, but he said nothing. He'd been quiet ever since the board meeting. I got the sense he was waiting to see which version of me walked through that door. Patricia cleared her throat and began like she was reading from a pre-written script. "Mark, you've caused quite a stir." I kept my hands folded, elbows off the table. I didn't cause anything. I just shared data that was already there. She didn't flinch, just opened the folder. Inside a multi-page NDA, a severance package that looked generous on paper, and a pre-written acknowledgement letter thanking me for my dedicated service and collaborative closure. "This is a clean exit," she said. "You walk with 6 months' pay, extended health coverage, and no further entanglement. In exchange, you agree to refrain from commentary legal action or releasing any additional materials now or in the future." It was neatly packaged, like an apology you could download as a PDF. I picked up the pen. Not to sign, just to test its weight. Then I reached into my coat and placed my old chipped mug on the table. A small act, but it made Patricia pause. "You're not just settling a problem," I said. "You're rebuilding credibility. This I tapped, the NDA doesn't get you there." Walter uncrossed his arms and leaned forward just slightly. "So what do you propose?" Patricia asked. Calm clipped corporate. I don't want my old job back, I said. But I do want a seat at the table I built. She blinked. I'm offering a solution, I continued. Title Chief Information Security Officer, reporting line directly to the board, authority to conduct internal audits without interference, freedom to assemble a team that prioritizes integrity over politics. I don't need revenge. I need structure. And so do you. Patricia studied me for a long moment, then turned to Walter. You've seen what's in that evidence folder, he said quietly. This place ran on his spine longer than we admitted. Letting him walk would be the worst kind of amnesia. She sighed and closed the NDA. This isn't conventional. Neither was what you uncovered, I replied. Conventional is what let it happen. The silence that followed was different than the kind in the HR room. It wasn't dismissive. It was weighty, like something old was cracking to make space for something new. My phone buzzed. A message from Miguel. They're watching. Proud of you, man. I smiled faintly, then stood to stretch. Just outside the conference room, I took a deep breath. Cold air through the hallway vents felt sharper than usual. Laura called. I picked up. She didn't ask how it went. She simply said, "It's not revenge if it brings you peace." It landed heavy, like something I'd been waiting to hear without knowing it. Back in the room, Patricia had returned with a thinner folder this time. Inside a signed board resolution. The position was created. The offer extended. Salary fair. Responsibilities broad. Oversight guaranteed. She slid it across the table. If you're serious, she said, we're ready. I didn't speak immediately, just reached for the mug, took a slow sip, then smiled. I'll need a parking spot that doesn't reset every week. Walter chuckled low and sincere. Patricia just nodded. This wasn't about reinstatement. This was about reclamation. The difference matters. Sometimes the best legacy is making sure the next person never has to clean up the same mess. The office was still too quiet for someone with a C-level title. I liked it that way. No company plaques on the wall, no fake ferns in the corner, just a clean desk, a wide window, and a cactus that had somehow survived my last 3 roles. I placed it on the windowsill again this morning. Next to it, the chipped ceramic mug. My own kind of badge. Outside December was trying its best to be winter. Strings of holiday lights blinked on and off across the street. In the distance, I could see people heading to lunch, wrapped in scarves, heads down against the breeze. In here, the air was steady. Clear. I'd spent the morning reviewing legacy permissions with Miguel, who now ran daily ops with a quiet efficiency that reminded me of, well, me, only louder in the right ways. The override stack from 2018, I asked. Wiped, Miguel replied without hesitation. Backups secured. I documented everything and stored a version off-site. I nodded. Good. We moved through the list: vendor credentialing, access thresholds, the mentorship policy we'd drafted together, one that prioritized ethics and transparency over performance metrics and buzzwords. I initialed it with a steady hand. There was a knock at the door. Walter stepped in wearing his retirement windbreaker like it was still 1997. Just wanted to see the view from up here, he said. It's not bad, I replied. He handed me an envelope, HR's way of making it real. Inside was a new badge. Mark Redden, Chief Information Security Officer. I held it for a moment longer than I needed to. It wasn't pride, it was confirmation. Walter looked around, eyes catching the cactus. Didn't think that thing would last. Neither did they, I said. He smiled, then tipped his head and left. A few minutes later, Laura arrived with a glass casserole dish tucked in both hands. You forgot lunch again, she said. I had coffee, I replied. She raised an eyebrow. That doesn't count. She placed the dish on my desk and uncovered it. Macaroni casserole browned just right, still warm. The smell filled the room like memory. It's okay now, she said softly. You can breathe. I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath. She stayed only a moment, brushing her hand over mine before heading back to the elevator. No need for long goodbyes. We were past those now. Back at my desk, I opened the audit interface. Clean layout. No clutter. At the very root directory of the new system, I typed a note hidden encrypted but traceable by those who'd one day need to know. Audit log root protected by people, not just passwords. I hit enter. No alert pinged, no fanfare. But the system accepted it. Behind me, Miguel re-entered. Board's asking if you want to say anything at the next all hands. I looked up. What should I tell the team you want in your first address? I stared at him for a second, then glanced at the cactus, the casserole, the badge, the mug. I smiled. Nothing I said. They already saw enough. Outside, the lights flickered again, white, green, red. Someone had started playing soft holiday music down on the plaza. I stayed seated, hands resting on the desk, feeling the weight of nothing pressing anymore. It wasn't glory. It wasn't revenge. It was balance. And sometimes in a world of noise, that was the best system anyone could build. Some things don't need fixing. They just need to be seen. That chipped mug on my windowsill isn't just ceramic. It's every Monday I didn't quit, every meeting I walked into with questions instead of applause. And Laura's casserole. It reminded me that not everything warm needs to be loud. In the end, I didn't take my story public. I didn't need headlines. The real win was changing the locks on a system that once thought loyalty was naive. Miguel has the keys now, and this time they're earned not handed down by seniority or politics, but by integrity. What I've learned, justice doesn't always come with fanfare. Sometimes it arrives in silence through lines of code you wrote long ago, or the quiet courage to say no when it's easier to disappear. We spend years building reputations, but our values, we live those daily in how we treat people who can't offer us anything back. If you've ever felt discarded after giving your all, I hope this story speaks to you. Not to stir bitterness, but to remind you you were never small. You just outgrew a place that stopped growing with you. If this chapter of my life reminds you of one from your own, feel free to share your thoughts. After all, sometimes the best systems are the ones where we remember we're not alone.